Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Mental Health, a series brought to you by Masiviwe, a movement for mental health. My name is Andile Maposa, and I will be your host for today's episode. The Masiviwe movement is a group of organizations led by the Foundation for Professional Development, the FPD, working together to make sure everyone is heard when it comes to mental health. And today we are talking about stigma and mental health. And to help me unpack this conversation, I am joined by Mr. Pholo Ramothwala, who describes himself as a health advocate and a believer in living beyond chronic illnesses or any life setback. Welcome to you, Pholo.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's great to have you. It's great to have you here. I'm curious though, as a health advocate, how does that work? What does that mean?
So it's more of a personal journey for me that I'm a person who has had to deal with quite a lot of stressful events in my life, and including health issues. Being diabetic and then living with HIV. So I had to deal with a lot of challenges that I needed to find ways to cope with them. So I realized that there's a lot of people who are struggling with their health conditions that they don't know what to do. They don't know who to talk to. They struggle with their medication. So I decided that, if I can talk to people, if I can help people to talk more openly about health issues that they are dealing with, then why not? And that's, as they say, the rest is history. And that's what I've been doing for the past, I think, 20 years or more.
So in your past 20 years, what type of work have you done around stigma?
A lot, actually. So it started in the late 90s, 2000, at the peak of HIV when, people living with HIV were being stigmatized against. I got involved because I needed to create awareness around that when you're living with HIV, you did not do anything wrong, and you shouldn't feel stigmatized internally or externally by other people. So I try to educate communities, but also people who are directly affected. Then I got to a point where I then went to teach stigma mitigation strategies at the University of Stellenbosch. For 3-4 years, again, working with different communities or students from different communities and countries, just trying to figure out what are the issues when it comes to stigma. How do we make sure that those who are affected, they are able to live their lives positively and beyond the negative experiences, and then at the same time helping organizations to come up with strategies. I think one of my highlights is working with workplaces to be able to help them, to help their employees to deal with the different experiences when it comes to stigma. And as I've said earlier, one of the challenges that I've noticed when it comes to stigma is around people who experience externalized stigma and those who experience stigma from others. And I find that that has been a challenge. And unfortunately, even today, we're still dealing with some levels of stigma, internal or external.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So we're going to watch a short video that talks about some of the things that you're talking about, and this is stigma. So let's have a look at this, and when we come back, we'll unpack more on stigma.
I would say my first experience where I realized that things weren't so great was probably in grade 10 or grade 11. Anxiety symptoms just knocked me. I battled a lot with sleeping, insomnia, panic attacks.
I came to Kotona. I was diagnosed 2016 that I have schizoaffective. So schizoaffective is a disease that it's a bipolar but is affected with drugs inside. So they call it schizoaffective.
I had a normal upbringing and I was married for 8 years, and then I became sick. I heard the television talking to me. That was the first clue. And then I went to Helen Joseph Hospital. When I got there, they booked me into the psych ward. I was diagnosed about, say, 10 years down the line with bipolar at our hospital.
Simula ko kapana le mathata go focus ko sekolong and ke simula go batla thuso ko mental health hospital ya mo Alexander. First, I didn't know what schizophrenia was, so I needed to know more information. I was a bit worried because I thought schizophrenia was maybe some psychotic thing. So I was very unaware that it's an illness that can pretty much affect anyone.
Around the second year of my degree, I had a really traumatic experience that really just affected my mental health, and I wasn't able to cope. I had to have a lot of academic accommodations made for me, but that was the time where I think a lot of the lecturers or people in the academic space thought I was faking it. If I broke my ankle and there's a doctor's note saying I can't come to school for 5 days, that would be respected. There are parts of my family that are a bit more traditional. I think if you look in the South African framework, coming from a black family, mental illness isn't really a thing. And I think there was a bit of the rhetoric of, you're so blessed, why would you be depressed?
They seem to think that schizophrenia has something to do with your spirituality and your connection to the ancestors. Somehow you have to go through that. So that's what I've heard people telling me about schizophrenia, that it's not an illness that can be helped with by medication, but by going through a ritual.
They were talking bad things, stigmatizing even my family. Babakhuluma nami bathi ngingaphili impilo abanye abantu bayiphilayo, shuthi manje mina ngilahlekelwe ingqondo, ngihlulekile, ngisahluleki nje, ngumuntu nje ohlulekile empilweni. Kunokuthi bona abafane nami ngcono bazibulale, ngcono abafe.
We as a family have learned together, and we've been able to overcome the stigma and overcome those challenges just by accessing different resources and learning and growing together.
My family's support was great. My brother stepped in 100%.
So I came to Kotona. Then Kotona, they motivate us. It's just like they got a slogan in their car. It says, change attitude, change life. I don't think that all those things that people were talking about me will happen, because I see another part.
Just being kind to every person. I think that that's something that's changed my life. You're holding space for somebody that you can see is upset.
I think really education is important about the mental illnesses, and people should know more about them instead of making up stereotypes.
So that was a short video titled Let's Talk Mental Health Stigma. Now, Pholo, the closing words from that video are quite important. When we change our attitudes, we can change lives. Why do you think so many people have a negative attitude towards people who are facing mental health challenges?
Yeah, Andile, one of and this is quite recent, I did a session for a group of men, and we're talking about what do they understand around mental health. And we use an example where I would then say, okay, if somebody were to come into this room and say they've got a mental condition, what's the first word that comes to mind? And it was quite disturbing to hear, what people were thinking. And I think this video is proof that there's so much negativity when it comes to mental health and lack of understanding that people just associate mental health with negative thoughts. Then people say this person wahlanya or something like that. And it's I think changing our attitude starts with understanding what mental health is. And once you understand what mental health is and what the type of mental conditions that people have to deal with, it's important for you to be able to to change your attitude. If you don't understand, then you're not going to be able to change your attitude. And understanding it's something that we have to do voluntarily, or we have to teach ourselves, learn more about mental health.
So something that kind of struck out to me was in the video, Mbali says that whereas her family was initially skeptical, they've started coming around. And now there's stigma around so many things, medical issues such as HIV, STIs, mental health. What do you think needs to be done to tackle stigma in all its forms, especially starting off in the family?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that the family should be the ones that are more accepting and they are more understanding, because they've lived with a person with a mental condition. And I've always said to people that if you didn't know that your family member, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your cousin has a mental condition, would you treat them differently? And most of the time people will say no. So I say, what has changed? What has changed is that a person who now has a mental condition, or they've been diagnosed, because at first maybe they were not diagnosed. We need to learn. We need to understand. First, let me backtrack a little bit. First, you need to understand that you're still dealing with the same human being that you knew before they were diagnosed with this mental condition. The second thing that we should do is to learn more about whatever mental condition a person is dealing with. That information makes a huge difference, Andile, in how we respond. And when you have more information, then you are less likely to come up with theories or negative thoughts that are not going to benefit you as the family member or a friend or a colleague, but also to that person, because that person needs help. They need support. And for you to be able to support them, you need to understand what they're dealing with first.
Mm-hmm. So from what you're saying, I think we can safely say stigma stems from ignorance.
Correct. Ignorance, but also lack of knowledge. I think sometimes because you've never been exposed to that situation where your family member is dealing with a mental condition, then you don't bother learning about it. And that's actually quite common, that it's only when it comes closer to home that you start wondering, okay, what do I know? What do I not know? So having to learn more, I think when somebody discloses that they have a mental condition, that's an opportunity for you to learn more about that condition. But of course, you don't have to wait for a family member to have a mental condition. It could be a colleague, it could be a church member, it could be anyone. So when there's an opportunity, there's a pamphlet, or there's this video that we are doing now, then it's important that we listen, keep an open mind, and try to understand, okay, what is this mental wellness about? Because it could come home one day if it's not there yet.
It could come home one day if it's not there yet. Powerful words there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue unpacking mental health stigma with my guest, Pholo Ramothwala. Welcome back to Let's Talk Mental Health. I'm your host. My name is Andile Maposa. In today's episode, we're talking about stigma and mental health with Pholo Ramothwala, and we watched a short video that Masiviwe put together, and it's titled Let's Talk Mental Health Stigma. And it featured people who live in a facility called Godonia Rehabilitation Center. And if you missed it, you can always check it out on our website. That's www.masiviwe.org.za, and you head over to our library section. Now, Pholo, in the video, we saw how one person said that they would rather die than live with a mental illness such as schizoaffective disorder. What would you say to someone who feels so stigmatized that they might consider taking their own life?
Yeah, I think first I'll talk to the community that facilitated or contributed in that person feeling the way that they did. You see, Andile, I think with stigma, a lot of us, when you start feeling like stigmatized, it's experiences from outside. It comes from somewhere, and I would want to talk to the people who are around this person, or even when you're not around this person. So let me give you an example. You know, we in communities, or when we are hanging out, and then somebody will say, you know, those people who are crazy, referring to people with mental conditions, not knowing that one of the people who are sitting with them, maybe they are taking medication for whatever mental condition that they're dealing with. That person, it's never going to talk about their condition, whether around them, or it will have negative impact that they will carry with them. So imagine this person now going home, and then they get to their house, and then they start remembering those negative comments that were made about their mental condition. And it affects this person to a point that they don't see their relevance to being alive or to being around. So it's important that as communities we understand. But for the person who feels that, you know, I rather die, I think one of the things that I encourage people, and we've got this concept called living life beyond whatever issues that you are dealing with, is that it's always important to try to meet up with other people who are going through the same issue, or the people who understand what you're going through. And when you find like-minded people who have different experiences in how they are managing their mental condition, it helps for you to feel, you know, settled, to be able to feel that you are not alone. And that can make a huge difference in how you feel stigmatized. It builds confidence that, you know, at least I am not alone, and then I can be able to deal with this, you know, with the support that I've got. So getting to hook up with other people or meet up with other people is quite important.
So how does one take that first step of reaching out, whether you're reaching out to someone for help, or you are reaching out to someone to connect you with other people who might be going through what you are going through? I think the biggest challenge is always that first step. How can a person take that first step?
There's two ways. I think when a person is going through stigma and fear, sometimes they can't see beyond, you know, that negative experience. So again, if they are care providers, your health or whoever, it's important that you then try as a healthcare provider to introduce this person to potential communities or people that you feel that they can assist or they can support the person who's dealing with a mental condition. But if you are in a position, as a person who has a mental condition, and you are in a position where you recognize that you need help, you know, ask the healthcare provider that is supporting you. If you are talking to a psychologist or a social worker, talk to them and say, are there any other people who have the same condition as me or who are dealing with this that I can talk to? I sometimes encourage that you can look online, but online, I think you can find anything. So when online is with caution, that do a bit of research. If you find a group, try to read the comments that people have about the group and see if it's something that it's encouraging you. If you go online and you read the comments and you just feel like, this is not for me, there is a reason why you're feeling like that. Then maybe ask somebody else to kind of second opinion to say, what do you think about this group? Is this something that can help me? But the ability to be able to talk to other people is important. And for those who are caring and family members to say, if you see something that you think might be important or useful, then try to introduce it. The trick is that don't force it on a person who's dealing with a mental health condition. They're feeling stigmatized, because often people get sensitive in being introduced to things because they feel vulnerable. Now, when they are still dealing with that vulnerability and you're now introducing them to things that they feel they are not ready, then you have to see it as a process. Slowly, one thing, one bit. You know, I've seen this video. What do you think? I've seen this article. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And then for you as the person who's dealing with this condition, also try to find as much information as you can by talking to other people, because there is information. Just screen it and make sure that it's not information that harms you. How do you know that this information harms you? It's when you are uncomfortable with it. If you start feeling uncomfortable, then something is off. Then try to talk to other people for second opinion.
That's if you find something uncomfortable, try and find another opinion. I actually like that. Now, Pholo, in your over 20 years, how have you seen the shift, especially amongst the Black community, when it comes to mental health and stigma? Because I believe culturally there's a lot of sensitivity around such issues, and sometimes those cultural things become a barrier to a person seeking assistance, and they add to the stigma. How have you seen any shifts happening within this regard in your time as an advocate?
I think there is shift, Andile, but not enough. And like you said, I think in our Black community, and then also we use culture. I think in the video there was a reference to, sometimes we think that it's something to do with what's the word that I'm looking for? Witchcraft. Some people would think it's witchcraft. Some people will think it's an ancestral thing that we must deal with. And that for me demonstrates lack of understanding when it comes to mental health. So I've seen a shift. I've seen more people engaging around mental health. I talk a lot about mental health, even for myself, that it's important to do a check-in with yourself. Am I okay? And sometimes check-in needs other people to help you. So there is a shift, but there is a need for us to have more of this engagement. And even at home, I think those of you who are watching this, start a conversation at home. Start a conversation at home with your partner or your friend or whoever, and ask, what do you think about mental health or people with mental condition? Or you be specific, and what do you think about a person who's depressed? What do you think a person who has who has schizophrenia? Like all that, and try to hear what they say and use that as an opportunity to start a conversation, and a positive conversation, a conversation that moves us to better understanding mental health conditions, and also to be able to care for those with mental health condition, but to empower those who have mental health conditions to be able to stand up on their own and be able to say, look, I have this condition and I'm dealing with it, but there's life beyond this mental condition, and I want to live it and I want to enjoy it.
There is life beyond this condition. I want to live it and I want to enjoy it. We're going to take a quick ad break, and when we come back, Pholo and I will just be concluding our conversation around mental health and stigma. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Let's Talk Mental Health, a show brought to you by Masiviwe, a movement for mental health. I've been talking with my guest, Pholo Ramothwala, about mental health and mental health stigma. And now, Pholo, as we wrap up, what is it you think you would like people to know about stigma and how it affects people who go quietly with these mental health conditions?
Okay, I think first, Andile, I would say if you have a mental health condition and you're struggling with it, remember, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of having a mental condition. You've already taken the step to take care of it and to be able to treat it. My advice is that they try to go, as I've said earlier, talk to other people, learn more about your condition, and don't be ashamed. Don't be scared to talk to people. And for those people who are outside and you can care or support those who have mental health condition, be open-minded. Try to learn about mental health condition, and so that you're able to support those who need you. And for those of you, I think, Andile, we said ignorant. If you're ignorant, remember, it might not be you, but it might be somebody that you know, or it might be somebody who needs you. So try to be open-minded and understand more about mental health conditions and mental wellness, so that we live a much more healthier and positive life.
Pholo Ramothwala, thank you so much for your time and just sharing your thoughts and your expertise around the subject. And we look forward to having another conversation with you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Mental Health with Masiviwe. I've been your host, Andile Maposa, and we'll see you in another episode coming soon.